Hi, welcome to Henry's Band in a Box tutorial course, Volume 2, which I call Moving On Up. The tutorials in Volume 1, they were to get you started and comfortable with the product. This volume concentrates on taking you up a level and includes 5 tutorials, which I think will help you in getting more out of the basic product. I start with what I consider to be the most important new feature in Band in a Box in years, and that's utility tracks. 16 additional tracks were added to the basic Band in a Box console. Second is volume automation, which allows users prior to 2024 the ability to mix their tracks within the console without ever having to use a DAW. In the third tutorial, I demonstrate how I create effective solos, with the key word being effective solos, because it's more to solos than just adding them to a bridge, right? You got to create the right mood, create the right instrument, fade it so it doesn't interfere with the vocals, just stuff like that. That's why I call it effective solos. In the fourth video, I demonstrate how to use Band in a Box applied loops in a song to add spice to your tracks. Congas, percussion, maracas, shakers, stuff like that, right? Actually, I think you'll like that song if you haven't ever heard it before. It's my version of Walk On By in a kind of a disco version, right? And lastly, I show how to push chords, which they give you a rhythm that little extra flavor. Now, remember, in my videos, part markers are implemented so you can skip and go directly to the subject that you'd like to explore and learn. Now, I know some of the videos are quite long, and I know they differ in quality. Things have changed. Equipment that I've got have changed over the years, stuff like that, systems, everything, right? But they differ in quality. Some of them are actually kind of pretty bad, I guess, in the beginning, But they suffice to get you the information. And remember, they were also created as standalone versions of the product, and they covered a lot of different yearly versions. Also, note that in my videos, I'm more concerned with teaching you the how of why you implement a certain task, more so than just clicking a menu. Now, I know this irritates some of you to no end, but I learned long ago as a technology instructor that if you only show people how to do something and not why they do it, they get confused when things are slightly out of order. If you don't enjoy this approach, my method of instruction, it just may not be your cup of tea. And I can appreciate that. You may want to view another channel. Like, there's no harm done if you decide to do that, But for those of you who do like my videos, I hope you enjoy Volume 2 and stay tuned for the next set of videos on this channel. So come on, y'all. Let's get started. Well, hello, Band in a Box users. This is Henry Clarke, Henry Clarke's channel. Hear that music in the background, right? That music was done using what Band in a Box 21 calls utility tracks, right? And these utility tracks, I think what happened was that Band in a Box, they realized that everybody didn't want to create a song with just a bass and a piano and a drum set and one guitar or something like that. You needed to add more stuff. I know I've always added a lot of other instruments to the songs that I do. So, with these utility tracks, right, you can actually, it gives you 16 additional tracks in Band in a Box that you can, you can generate real tracks, you can add MIDI to those tracks, or you can do, it's a lot of other stuff that you can do. Now, this tutorial is about how I use utility tracks, which only came out in Band in a Box 2021. So if you have 2021, you're in luck, because now you have a lot more tracks that you can actually experiment with and put in your compositions together. And again, this track behind me was done using utility tracks, right? I think I composed this song with like 14 tracks. But I'm just going to give you a demo of how I actually went through creating these tracks and exporting these tracks over into my DAW. Okay, again, I don't use Real Band. I use Sonar. It just gives me a bit more flexibility. I'm used to it, something like that. So again, subscribe. If you like what I do, please subscribe. But again, this tutorial is about how I use utility tracks, the new utility tracks in 2021 in creating compositions. So again, hold on tight. I'm gonna head on over to Band in a Box and we can get started on how Henry does utility tracks in Band in a Box. See you in a second. Okay, I'm back. So again, this tutorial is about how I use utility tracks, right? How I use utility tracks. And utility tracks are something that's in Band in the Box 2021. So if you don't have 2021, you're out of luck there because they didn't start till 2021. But Band in the Box gave you these utility tracks, and it's actually 16 tracks, and you can record you can record vocals on it, you can record MIDI on it, you can render real tracks on it, and so on and so forth, right? Now, I use it to render additional real tracks on it, right? And the reason why is because I record in my DAW. I use my DAW for my recording purposes for vocals, and any other instrument I want to use, I do it in my DAW. But just to show you how you can use these real tracks, or I'm sorry, these utility tracks, right? I just want to give you a quick demonstration of how I did that and how you can do that in your compositions going forward. So what I did was I had this pattern, right? First of all, I want you to see my mixer screen over here. And I can take my mixer screen and I can only show tracks that are active. So right now I found a loop. My Band in the Box got these weird names, right? Electronic chill out pop, or whatever that means, right? But it's got 3 loops in it, a guitar and a piano, right? And I thought I'd play around with that, right? And again, my mixer window here, nice thing about the new mixer window is I can actually take this mixer window and I can expand it if I need to. So I can expand it. Like I said, right now I'm only showing tracks that are actually active, ones that I'm actually using, okay? But I can just go to the window here and I can actually float the mixer window, take it off, and I can just bring the window back up and so on and so forth, right? I like the window over here in the corner of the screen. I kind of like that a whole lot. But anyway, so I found this loop that I like, kind of went like this. And I'm going, oh, I like that, right? Just trying to put a track together, right? The first 4 bars were intro, right? And I kind of started my little singing thing, right up in here. How do I find the words to help you ease your mind and let you know my love will stand the test of time? So I went, okay, I like that. I really like that. And I want to take that, I'm going to expand on that because right now all I have is 3 loops, a guitar, and a piano. And if you've heard any of my music, you know that I want to use more. And this is where these utility tracks can really come in handy in me adding extra tracks to it, right? So what did I do from there, right? Well, like I said, I want to set the song up. I wanted to kind of arrange it. And just to save time, I've got 3 templates that I'm using just to show you in this tutorial, right? So what I did was I'm going to open up another tutorial that's got some breaks in it, right? So this tutorial right here has some breaks in it, and just to give you an example. So now I showed you what it sounded like initially, right? Again, it was just electronic chili pop. It had 3 loops, a guitar, and a piano, right? Well, I added a bass and I added drums also just to give it a little bit more dynamics, right? So again, so if you listen to it now, right, you'll see that at bar 1 it starts out just kind of acoustics, right? Just a percussion loop and the guitar itself, right? When you get up into here, again, I'm back to bringing my guitar in, right? At bar 13, I brought the piano in. It's filling out a little bit better, right? And then when I got to the hook at bar 21, I brought in the bass and I brought in the drums, right? Again, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted more in there than just that. Even though it was a good lift, it wasn't. And if you see when I get to bar 21, but this is where utility tracks come in very handy at. Look at my window over here on the right. What it is, it's full, isn't it? If you look across here, right, it's full. I don't have any more of the standard tracks to use, right? But now I can use my utility tracks. So if I open up my eye here, the little eye right over here on the right, you'll see I've got all these utility tracks at my disposal. So just to save time, I'm going to go ahead and create 3 utility tracks. I think I'm going to create an organ. I'm going to create a synth pad. I'm going to create I'll just do strings. This is those 3, right? So how do you do that with the utility tracks? Well, I'm going to show my active tracks, right? So if I go to utility 1, notice it shows utility 1 right here, right? Now this is important. And also, it's very important also is that when you, in Band in the Box 21, I didn't do it a lot in Band in the Box 2020 and below, but it's important that I set up a folder in Band in the Box 2021 because what happens is that these tracks here will get saved as waves. They won't have a name, but they'll get saved as waves, right? And they'll be in that folder along with the standard .sgu file, right? So again, so for practical purposes of knowing where you are without searching for stuff, right? Just create a folder, whatever directory you use to keep your songs in, just create a folder of that song right up front. So anyways, okay, so now I'm going to create an organ. I think I'm going to create an organ, right? So I'm going to go to utility 1. and I'll put an organ on the utility track. How do I do that, right? I'll just do utility. I will right click. I will generate, and I'm going to select what I want to generate, right? I have some already saved, so I'm just going to put, organ in here, right? So I'm just going to put organ in here. And the one I used previously was organ 2692 was an organ that I used, right? So I'm going to go ahead and use that. And now, even though it popped up here first, but it's actually going to go down, it's going to show up in the utility track. I don't know why it does that, but it's going to show up in the utility track but it's going to show up as utility. It's not going to show up as organ. It's going to show up as utility. And you will see now, this is the actual organ here on utility 1. And you want to check it out, you can see if I play, because it's not muted, so if I play, you will hear the actual organ. Notice the organ's playing. Now, this is really, really important, folks, is that it says utility 1, right? We can't have that because as you start adding extra utility tracks, right, you need to have the name so you will remember what it was when you actually created it, right? So I'm going to take this utility 1 and I'm going to go to the track settings and I'm going to rename the track title and I'm going to name it organ because that's what it is. It's an organ, right? Then I'm going to go back and I'm going to, not just the track, this description of the track, and I'm going to name it organ, but I'm also going to name it the real track number that I actually used. And in this case, I used the real track number 2692. And you will see why that comes in handy. So now I have utility track 1 is no longer called utility track 1. It is now called organ, and it's organ 2692 that I used, right? Okay, so what now? I'll just, like I said, I'll put in 2 more and just to show you guys how it works, right? So again, if you look at utilities now, right, you'll see I have organ here. So let me select utility track. Let's do another utility track, right? So I think I will do, let's do background vocals. So I'm going to do background vocals, right? So I'm going to go here, I'm going to generate, and I'm going to type in my filter string. I'm going to type in vocal. And it's going to show me the vocals, right? And I want 3027 is what I want. There's 3027. And if I bring up 3027, right, it's rendering that vocal track. So it's going to be everything is going to be in sync. It's going to be nice. It's going to sound great when it's all done. But right now, it's rendering that track for me to use. And again, the vocals are going to be utility 2. Now, see what it's called. It's called utility 2. That's not going to work for me, right? I'm going to go back to my track settings. I'm going to rename the track title. And I'm going to call it BK Vocals, or background vocals is what I'm going to call it, right? And I'm going to go back and I'm going to rename it again. I'm going to name the track description as BK Vocals. And I use BK Vocals 3027 is what I use. So now I'm using BK Vocals 27. And I will do one more utility track, utility 3. And let's put in a bright guitar. So I'm going to go and I'm going to select, I'm going to generate again. I'm going to select generate. And I'm going to type in guitar. And let me see what I get. Guitar acoustic is what I used. And nothing came on because I misspelled it wrong. Guitar acoustic AC. And my number for that was 1828. Do I see you anybody saying 1828? There's an 1828, so I'm going to use that one. And again, the reason why I had these written down at the same time, just so you know, right? You know, I mean, I could experiment. I could pull any guitar in that I want, but just to save time, I just want to show you some that I use, right? Again, what is it called? Utility 3. I can't have that, right? So I'm going to change the name again. I'm going to rename the track title to Guitar Acoustic. I'll just call it ACC. And I'm going to change the description of the track to Guitar ACC, and what did I use? I used 1828. So that's what I use. Again, why is that important? If you look at my mixer now, you will see these tracks by name. Again, this is going to be important in a second. It may not be important at first right now because it could be utility 1, utility 3. But think about it. If you start doing all the way up to utility track 16, right, you'll have utility tracks 1 through 16. And if you don't know the name of them, then you won't know what they are. And this is really important in the next step. So, and also notice I floated my mixer just to show you because my mixer did not show. It shows it right now, but as I started getting more and more tracks in, right, the mixer will start scrunching up, get tighter and tighter and tighter. So now I can bring it over here and I can show you fully what it looks like. So I just, for demonstration purposes, I put in 3 utility tracks, right? And I'm going to bring up another template just to show you how many utility tracks I actually use, so you can see what I'm talking about when I say you could easily get confused. So again, so hold on one second while I bring in the next template that I'm going to show you how many tracks I actually use. Oh, and by the way, all of these tracks are playing. If I just go ahead and if I render these tracks and just generate, right, these tracks will play. I don't have them muted, so they will automatically start playing. And there they are. I don't worry about the levels right now. It's the sound that I'm after and not the levels. Again, so one second and I'm going to bring in the third template and you will see what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm back now. So I brought in my third template, which was the actual template that I used in putting this song together, right? Look over here on the right side of the screen. Look at how many tracks I have. I have loop 1, loop 2, loop 3, guitar, piano, bass, drums, organ, synth pad, acoustic piano, another piano, in other words, an acoustic piano, a bright guitar, acoustic guitar, background vocal, strings, guitar solo 2, and a guitar solo, right? Again, see how the window's starting to scrunch up, right? But if I show you in this version here, not there, mixer. If I show you here, this is what I'm talking about. See, if you notice, here are all of my tracks, and notice how I named them so that I know what they are, right? Well, again, why is that important? Because what I need to do now is I need to get these tracks and get these tracks over into my DAW, whether I'm using Sonar, whatever I'm using, Real Band, whatever it is, right? But I need to do that, and I need it by name. So once I have the tracks that I wanted to add, and again, I filled it up. And if you listen to it, I know it's gonna sound like a jumble right now. You listen to it, everything is playing at the same time. You'd be like, oh my God. Yeah. Everything is playing at the same time. But I'm not worried about that. I don't care about that because I'm gonna make those adjustments when I bring it over to my DAW. And this is an important point too, is that I'm getting ready to render these tracks, right? So that I can move them over to my DAW. My thing is I always render at 90 dB and I always pan center. I don't pan hard left or hard right, I pan center. Try to get as close to center as possible anyway. It might be, if it's a little off, that's okay. But I pan center is what I do. I don't worry about reverb and effects. If it's on it, that doesn't matter because it usually sounds pretty good anyway. But I make sure that I'm in that 90 range, dB range. And the reason why I do that, and I've seen in discussions where people say it doesn't matter. If you're going to mix within Band in the Box, it probably doesn't matter. But if you're going to bring it to your DAW, you want that sound nice and hot and clean is what you want. The last thing you want to do is have a WAV file that's low volume, and now all of a sudden you've got to use gain on that WAV file other than the fader in order to bring that WAV file up. So I use 90 dB whenever I'm bringing all of my tracks over. So now it's time to make these tracks available for my DAW, right? So I'm going to go here to audio, and I'm going to go export as an audio file, and I get this window here, right? Now, this is an important window here. The main thing is that I want them to be WAV files, I want them to be in stereo, and I want them to be 24-bit files. But I also, right here, I want one file per track. One file per track. When it says one file per track, that means it's going to separate and give me all of these as separate tracks. That is exactly what I want. So, and I could talk about acid, but it'd take a little bit longer. Acid waves, a lot of times, acid waves can create, they can be susceptible to following tempo changes, following key changes sometimes if it's really good acid info or waves, right? Again, I'm not going to get into that here, but I check it off anyway. So when I get ready to go render, though, this is important. Once I render, right, remember I told you, I said, I wanted you to create a folder in your song. I created a folder called render. Look at these tracks I have that the Band in the Box is already saved. What do they call them? You know, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't know what the instruments those are, right? So I created a folder called render. I'm going to open this folder up, and this is where I want my tracks to go. I want my tracks to go into the render folder, right? So when my tracks will get rendered, they will go into the render folder. This is really, really important, right, to set that folder up. So now I'm going to hit render, and the tracks are rendering. Now, I'm not going to sit here, and we're not going to sit here and make you watch all 14 of these tracks render because that's kind of a waste of time, right? But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a break. I'm going to come back, and I'm going to show you what it looks like after it's rendered. But notice that it's rendering. Notice if you look right here, you will see that it's generating the real tracks right now. And by the way, this is much faster than it used to be also. I looked at some of the earlier versions of Band in the Box that I used. Render took quite a while. So it's a whole lot faster this time. I don't even improved it. The rendering engine or whatever, right? right? But I'm going to be back in a second. I'm going to show you what happens after I have all of my tracks rendered, okay? So again, I will be right back. Okay, so we got our tracks rendered, right? I kind of want to speed this up now because I know you guys be like, it's so long, right? But I tell you what, the reason why it's longer is because I try to show you guys every step that I take, every mouse click I make, and the reason why is because I think that helps you out a lot instead of me just kind of rushing through and telling you what to do. I'm trying to show you at the same time. So again, so all of my tracks are rendered. It took a little bit of time to do that, but all of my tracks are rendered. They're in my render folder, like I said, I wanted them to be, right? And they are rendered by name. Guitar. Notice guitar loop 1, 2, 3, organ, string, synth pad, solo, drums, background vocals, bass, acoustic piano, acoustic bright guitar. And again, the reason why I do that and name them, you got to name them, man, because if you don't, this would have just said utility, 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 utility. And we did not want that. So those are done. So now I can close this window. This is the window I use to render the audio file. This is done. I am done with my band in the box portion, right? Because I'm going to use these in my DAW. So remember, what did I do? I made sure that my volumes were at 90 dB so that I didn't have to adjust the waves in my DAW. So again, really quickly, I'm going to speed on over here. I'm taking it to my DAW. I'm going to show, here's it in my DAW, right? I went to that folder when I put this together. I went to that folder in band in the box. Here, right here, this render folder, and those are the tracks there. I have dragged these tracks over into my DAW. And just to give you a little quick example, if I take this track and just drag, I'm just going to drag it over, right? What is this? This is some type of guitar or whatever, you know, because I've already got it loaded. That's why I'm just not that concerned about it. But again, I'm just going to take and drag these tracks over to my DAW, and then I can adjust them the way I want them to play and when I want them to play, right? So again, as far as my composition goes, the track was rendered from start to finish, but I only wanted to play in certain times. So if you listen to a little bit, I'm going to play a little bit of my track for you so you can see what I'm talking about. I started the track off with, oops. I started the track off with a percussion loop and just the guitar, right? So again, so I started that out. I started singing it at the 6 to 8 second mark, 10 second mark or whatever, right? You know. And again, I'm only using just percussion loop and guitar. As we move down further, again, I'm just trying to hurry up and get through this, right? Like I said, I don't want the video to be too long, and it's already like over 20 minutes. When I got to this area here, right, so I brought in some drums, heavier drums. All this is production, but remember, all these are loops that we created when we rendered. So my drums are in here now, right? I'm gonna go, like I said, I'm gonna go forward. Then when I got up in here, I decided to bring in some pianos just to give it a new dimension. Pianos in now. All this is to give it a new dimension, but remember, these were the same real tracks that I rendered, so that I would have that flexibility. And then, of course, when I got to the hook, I bring the sync in, right? You know, I bring the bass in, I bring in another acoustic piano, I bring in another guitar, I just bring everything in at the hook. When I get to the hook, background vocals, everything's there. The only other thing you don't hear at that point is you don't hear the guitar solo. Didn't want to solo the whole thing, you know, during the whole time, right? I only wanted to solo at a certain portion, which is when I decided to bring the solo in. I think I was at maybe the 3-minute mark or something. And if you look here, you see guitar solo highlighted here, right? Let me go find my little guitar solo, right? Because I thought that was a pretty good touch to the song. I put it like that, right? So at the 2:53 mark, I decided to slowly think about when I wanted a guitar solo, which was after the second hook. So again, and that's my guitar solo in there, right? Again, I'm not gonna play the whole song. It's you guys can check it out, and it's on my my homepage for my YouTube. It's on my home YouTube channel page if you guys want to check out the whole song. But I just wanted to show you guys how I use utility tracks, how I render the tracks so that I can import them into my DAW. Remember that I started out from a basic pattern that had 3 loops and a piano and a guitar, I think is what it had, you know. And of course I've added bass, drum, strings, another piano, another guitar, a guitar solo, background vocals, the whole 9 yards, right? And I did that through rendering. Now you can do this if you don't have Band in the Box 2021, which was an old way, and I had a video talked about how I fatten the sound up, and you can do it by, you know, creating different Band in the Box song templates and adding extra instruments from there. But 2021 is great for me and be able to add these just right on the fly. So again, so I can just keep adding utility tracks, rendering. Of course, like I said, you can do MIDI and all the other things that are associated with that. But this is a quick tutorial on how I use utility tracks in my demos. Hello and welcome to Henry's Band in the Box channel. And again, this is Henry's channel, right? And what I do is I kind of show you guys how to do production techniques and tips in Band in the Box. Well, it's almost Christmas, right? So I got a couple of days and I'm off and I'm not doing too much of anything. And my 2022 arrived. I know I had a video out there about upgrading, right? Well, I did upgrade and my pack came and it was so easy for me because doing the upgrade through a hard drive is kind of just plug and play. I transferred a few files over. I transferred my files over to the new drive. I transferred some real tracks and styles that I previously had and transferred those over, and I was off and running. So right now you're looking at 2022. And in 2022 there's some features in there, right? But one feature that jumped out at me immediately was the feature called volume automation. And if you don't know what volume automation is, volume automation actually automatically lets you adjust the levels in your track. So you can take instruments out, you can bring them in, you can raise the volume, you can lower the volume, right? And it can really, really come in handy when you're putting a song together. And I'm gonna give you a quick example of that. This is a song I call Everything I Do, that I actually did it in Band in the Box musically. And then I moved it, of course, over to my Sonar because I'm a big Sonar fan when it comes to singing and stuff like that, right? But most major DAWs have had volume automation for a long time, right? Now, Band in the Box, they may have had it in Real Band. I don't know. I'm not a Real Band user. But it appears that there's an effort from PG Music to allow you to do more within the Band in the Box console without even going to Real Band. And I just think that's just fantastic because now you can pretty much do a little bit more and write a little bit more without having to worry about actually loading out Real Band. And I think this automation tool may have been a part of that overall strategy, kind of like multi-riffs and things like that, right? Could be part of that strategy in allowing you to do more inside of the Band in the Box console without you having to go to an external console or even using a DAW if that's your choice. Well, Band in the Box incorporated volume automation also, right? Now, what made it significant is that when you use standard Band in the Box, all you had to do was go to bar settings. So if you click here and you went to bar settings, right, you could actually, if you notice in this grouping here, you can actually change, you can mute, you can back to normal, you can fade, whatever instrument you want to fade, right? But what's missing? If you look at it closer, you'll see that I've got my bass, my guitar, my drums, my organ, but what's missing is utility tracks. So if you have a song and you have used utility tracks, right? Utility tracks were not included in this particular technique of adjusting the overall volumes of your song. So now if I go in and I add a utility track, and by the way, this is great what they have done with utility tracks, because what they have done is in the past when they did 2021, they would just name utility track. Now they actually follow the actual track. I think it's really, really cool that they do that now. So again, so I'm going to add another guitar. And notice it came up as guitar. Now, in the past, it would have come up as utility 1. Utility 2, I'm going to add, I'm going to add a piano. I'm going to add an acoustic piano. And for guitar 4, I'm going to add, let me see, I'll just add, what will be good? I'm going to add the same guitar again because it may play a different pattern. So now I'm using 3 utility tracks. And if you go here and look, you'll see I'm actually using 3 utility tracks now. But they show by name. I think it is so cool that they've done that. I'm so glad that they've done that. Because like I said, they didn't do that before, you know. So now I have 3 utility tracks, right? But check it out now. So now if I try to do automation through bar settings, look what's missing. My utility tracks are not there because they weren't written into this particular part of the program. So when I want to do automation, right, now I won't use this anymore. Now, if you're doing all of your tracks strictly from the top Band in the Box tracks, then you can still use your bar settings and it will come out just fine. But if you want to use fading and things like techniques like that, with utility tracks, you need to get familiar with volume automation. It's just one of those things you have to do. So how do you do that, right? Well, oh, and here's another thing. I don't recommend doing both. I recommend you do either one or the other. Either you're going to do your automation through bar settings, or you're going to do your automation through the audio edit tool, which is what I clicked just now, the audio edit tool, right? So now what happens is that I get to pick whatever instrument I want. So I'm going to leave the bass as normal. I'm going to leave the guitar as normal, the drums as normal. I'm going to leave all these as normal in the intro. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the organ out until I get to a bar where I want it to come back, is what I'm going to do. So as I play through the song, and for practical, I'm going to mute my utility tracks for right now. Notice my organ's there, right? And I can actually lower the volume, but you know, right now, I just wanted to say it is right now for practical, oh God, tongue-tied, for practical purposes. Now this is where I would start singing, right? Now, I don't want the organ, starting from bar 9, I don't want the organ anymore, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go here at bar 9, and I'm going to set a node here, right? So I'm going to just click, and notice the circle turned blue, right? That's considered a node. I'm going to put another node here. So now when I want to take the organ out, right, all I have to do now is just take the organ down, and you'll hear the organ actually fade. I'm going to take the organ all the way down to nothing. I don't want the organ in at all, right? So now if I play it, what you're going to notice is I'm going to play from bar 8. So if I play from bar 8, see, the organ's gone. I think that's really, really cool, right? Now, when do I want it to come back, right? I think I want it to come back when the song changes a bit. I'm still automating just the organ right now. So I want it back at bar 17. So what do? I roll over to node 17, to bar 17. I put a node in again. I put another node in. And I'm going to bring the organ back up at bar 17. So now when I do this, starting from bar 9, I want to play from bar 9. Let's play from bar 8. Organ's there. Organ's gone. I never knew the love before, even though I tried. See, I didn't want that organ in the way. I wanted to make sure I had room for my vocal in there, right? The fool, I'd always end up all alone, wondering what. Organ back. Notice the Manello organ's back. That's really cool. I like that, right? So now I can play around with my other instruments that I may want to decide, you know, how I want to use them, right? So maybe for guitar 3, if I go back and I play guitar 3, let's just play from the very beginning. I'm going to go all the way back to the very beginning. And let's see what what guitar 3 sounds like. I like that rhythm. That's what it sounds like. I like that picking. But I don't want that picking until I get to the verse, because I like to have some picking up under my lead vocal, right? So what I'm going to do with that, this is guitar 3. I'm going to go to guitar 3, and right off the bat, you know what I'm going to do with guitar 3? I'm going to take guitar 3 and I'm going to bring it all the way down to nothing. I don't want guitar 3 playing at all in the beginning. So I'm going to take guitar 3 and I'm going to bring it all the way down to 0. And when I start singing at bar 9, I'm going to bring it back. So I'm going to put a note here and I'm going to bring it back, but not as hot as it was before. Just a nice little medium pace, right? Just to give it a little background filler. So I'm going to do that, and I'll just put another note here and kind of keep it up in here. And then when I get to bar 17, I'm going to take it back down. And I'm not going to bring it back up again until I get to the hook. So now when I do it, if I play the entire song from the beginning, remember, I took my organ, come on here, I took my organ, right, and I only had it play the first 8 bars. Notice guitar 3 is not playing at all. This is really, really good. I really, really like this, right? Because again, I only want that little picking sound when I start singing. So as I move through, right, I'm almost ready. Get ready to sing right here. See that? I really like that. So that's how volume automation works. I'm not going to take you guys through the whole song. It'll take forever, right? You know, but I can do those things. It's the same. I can do that with the piano, right? When do I want the piano to come in, right? Do I want the piano in the beginning of the song, or do I want the piano later, right? Who knows? I don't know right now, you know. So I just leave the piano as it is, right? One thing I definitely do not want the piano when I start singing. For whatever, with this particular song, I only wanted guitars. I only wanted guitars playing when I first started singing this song. So again, I'm gonna go to my piano. Here's my piano bar, and at bar 9 on piano, I'm gonna take it down to 0. I don't want the piano playing, and I'm not gonna bring it back again until bar 17. So as I roll over to bar 17, I'll set up another note here, and I'm going to bring my piano up at bar 17. So now my piano is not playing either until I get to the change in the song, which is bar, my piano goes out, it starts in the intro, then it goes out at bar 9, and then it comes back in at bar 17. So this is what I'm talking about, how, and it helps me build dynamics also into the song. Piano is still playing. That's going to drop out. It's gone. I love the guitar sound of this song. I just think that the real tracks that they developed, I think it's just great. They give me the exact feel that I was looking for. Piano's in, organ's in. So that's what I'm talking about. Now, the difference, of course, like I said, I cannot, if I take audio edit off and I try to do this through the bar settings, it doesn't allow me to do that, because in the bar settings window, I don't have access to change the mood or change the volume of my utility tracks, which are guitar 3, piano, and guitar 4. I don't have that capability, right? So again, the key point here is that if you're going to do the song strictly within the first 7 tracks of Band in a Box, then you probably don't need the audio edit window unless you want to pre-mix it within the program. But if you want to use utility tracks as part of your pre-mix also, and I say pre-mix, it could also be your final mix, right? You know, then audio edit is the way to go. It's really just that simple. Does it take a little time? Probably. It probably takes a little time, and also, you know, you can make changes. I saw where someone said, well, you can't make changes. Yes, you can make changes, right? You can take bars in, you can take bars out, but just remember, what you do if you do that is you are changing the overall automation wave is what you're changing. You're changing your nodes when you do that, right? So you don't want to get your nodes confused. So what I suggest strongly is that have the song done. If you have the song done when you do it, then you probably won't have any difficulties, and it will play straight out as it is, and you shouldn't have any issues, right? Whereas if you start playing around with changing bars and changing chords and things like that, actually it will go with the chords, but if you start changing other elements of the song, right, then you know you may have some issues. But it's like anything else, right? What happens? We don't really play with our faders and play with our mix until we're done with our song, because that's just kind of a standard practice, right? Well, the same applies here. I'm not going to play with the audio edit until I'm close to being complete with what I want in the song and what I don't want in the song. that's when I would do it. And again, this is doing it totally within the Band in the Box console. So now if I wanted to, I could also hook my mic up and record audio and do the entire song without ever leaving the Band in the Box console. And I think that's really where they're headed, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to give you more functionality within the Band in the Box console without you ever having to leave Band in the Box, so you don't even have to go to real band or go to commercial DAW or anything else, right? Now, of course, me, I will always go over to my Sonar because I do more stuff. I have tons of background vocals and all of those types of things. But for the type of music that I hear a lot of people do, right, I think this is an absolute fantastic feature for them. So again, it's called Audio Edit. How do you use it? You go into whatever instrument that you want to deal with. Whatever instrument you want to deal with, your entire instrument window will show up. You go there and you create what we call nodes. So you create a node for when you want that instrument to play. And whether you want it to play loud, whether you want it to play soft, how do you create a node? You just click and it gives you a node. Click again, you get a node. It's really just that simple to do that, right? And now you can adjust the volume levels to compare to however you want to hear them. You can, again, when you get to a part where you want to bring them back, you can just click here. You can bring them back. You can make them, you can even peak them, right, if you want to. I mean, you can actually drive it all the way up there, so it'll just blast for a second, right, and then maybe it comes back in and maybe a little softer, right? That's it. It's really that. It's an easy thing to do. How you use it may be a little bit, I don't want to say frustrating, right? But there are so many things you can do within the console now that you couldn't do before. And again, it incorporates the utility tracks. And the nice thing about the utility tracks that have changed in 2022 is that where they used to come up as Utility 1, Utility 2, and Utility 3, now they actually come up with the name of the actual utility track that you use. So I hope this helps you guys with volume automation, right? Again, it's through the audio edit window. And I will see you guys more in 2022 when I have other tutorials out. But hopefully this one will help you get started anyway, right? And I'll see you guys next time. Okay, bye. Hello, Band in the Box users. This is Henry Clarke. Henry Clarke's channel. Of course, if you like what I do, please subscribe, right? I gotta say that. But today, it's like, oh, solo mio, right? No, it's about solos and how to do solos in Band in the Box, right? And a solo can be a great thing because a solo can actually set the song up. And a solo is also great if you throw a solo in the bridge, right? Really helps lift the song up or take the song into a new dimension. Now, I'm not big on like a 90,000 chord changes and all that kind of stuff. No, I mean, some guys get so technical with Band in the Box or anything they do, right? It's like, I need to change these 14 MIDI notes, If you got to change 14 MIDI notes, you know what? You probably need to play it over again, right? I had a boss that used to say, is it a tool or is it a task, right? You wanted to use the product as a tool and not a task. If you spend all your time doing a task, right, then are you really getting anything out of the product? No, You want to try to create, is the song good? And a lot of times, to be honest with you, the more simple the song is, actually the better the song is. But again, I digress. Solos can help set the song up, right? And I'm going to show you my method for creating effective solos within Band in the Box. And of course, the DAW is an important component of that, right? Because of the way I kind of chop it up and splice and stuff, right? But again, I'm going to show you how Henry does effective solos in Band in the Box. And that solo can be a guitar, it can be a piano, it can be a saxophone, right? You got to watch those guitar solo guys, man, because those guys, they love the first thing they do is they go back and they crank the amp up all the way, right? And put their foot on like 14 different pedals, And of course, you got to tell them when to stop also. Those guys will go on forever, But anyway, I know I'm having fun. I'm having fun with solos, right? But hopefully you will be able to figure out and you will be able to learn how I do solos, and you can incorporate some of my techniques into your songs going forward. So again, let me head on over to Band in the Box, and I'm going to show you guys how Henry does effective solos within Band in the Box, right? So be right back. Hold on. Welcome back. And again, so we're going to do some soloing, right? Some soloing. And because I get tagged on YouTube, right, I'm going to have to use one of my own songs. So you got to bear with one of my own songs. This is a song I wrote called Do You Still Think About Me? And it's a ballad. It's a ballad, right? But what happened, I thought it was good for a solo because I set the song up with a solo. And it's got a solo during an 8-bar break, in between the middle of the song and, closer to the end. So anyway, so the song sounded something like this. It went like this. And I'm going, oh, that'd be nice to have a solo, because I haven't started singing yet, right? So I go, this would be nice to have a solo in this part to set the song up. So of course it was a matter of finding an instrument that would work, you know. But again, this is how a song sounded from a scratch pad perspective, and you can see my band in the box, right? How I wrote it here, you know. And then it comes in right here. I start singing. Saw a photograph, a memory of the past, of days when I was such a fool. So anyway, so yeah, it's kind of a sad song, right? But what I wanted to do is, again, I said, oh, this would be nice to put a solo in the beginning of it, right? But what kind of instrument would be best for me, right? So again, I've got my pattern here. So this is the quickest way for me to do this, right? So I just went through and I just said, okay, let me try to find some different patterns, right? So I went through and said, okay, what instrument do I think might work, right? So I'm using this track here where it says pedal steel, right? So I says, okay, well, let's try. And what I do is I actually go here, select real tracks, right? And when I select real tracks, one of the things that I do is I type in the word soloist. So instead of going through all the tracks, like I'll go through here and I'll type in soloist. So let's just say I'm going to type in guitar soloist, right? So I'll type in guitar, and I'll put in soloist. And I'll do an update here, and it's going to show me guitar tracks. If you notice, it's going to show me guitar tracks that have a soloist flavor, right? I've got acoustic guitar soloist with gypsy jazz, right? So on and so forth. I've got bluegrass. I've got laid back blues, right? So let's just, and I'll just pick one. So I'll just pick, let's try and see what it sounds like with a guitar soloist, right? From a laid back blues perspective, right? And just to give an idea what it may sound like. You know what? But I'll give it a shot, right? See what it sounds like. So I'll generate the track. So I'll go ahead and generate and just listen to it for a second. No. That is not what we want. We don't want that one there, right? So let me see if I can find. So again, so I didn't like that one much, right? So I'm gonna try to find another one. So I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna try to find another soloist track, right? And I've got some already saved here, right? So let's just go and just find some other soloists. Let's try electric guitar soloists and see what we come up with, right? So I'm gonna pick soloist, let the system generate and see what I get now from a soloist perspective, right? And what I'm doing is I'm trying to find a mood for the song. This is really what I'm trying to do. Now that's not bad. It's like the guitar perspective, right? That's a little brash. The song is a smooth song, so I'm not sure I want to keep that brash tone there, right? So again, so it's a matter of trying to find the right type of instrument that you want to use a soloist. And once you find an instrument, then you can kind of play around with it in the massage and so on and so forth, right? So again, so we tried that. We tried a kind of a rock thing, right? So now I'm gonna go back here again, and I'm gonna look for a different soloist track. So I've got some soloist tracks here, right? That are recent, right? Okay, let's try pedal steel. Let's try to see what it sounds like with a pedal steel sound, which is really interesting because this is kind of R&B song, right? And it's an R&B smooth jazz song. I'm gonna put a steel pedal against it, right? But this is what we use Band in the Box for. We experiment to see what we can come up with. So this is it with pedal steel soloist. Let's see what it sounds like. That's kind of smooth, but again, you know, I don't know if that's working for me, right? But it could work for you. It could work for you, right? But anyway, so that's a pedal steel. So this, again, what you're doing, you're trying to find something that fits your mood, again. And it depends on the type of song you're doing, right? Again, this is a smooth jazz R&B type of song. So I decided that I didn't like the steel pedal. I didn't like the other instruments I picked, right? So again, so I said, this would be nice for a horn part, right? So let's try a saxophone. So again, I'm going here and I'm typing in saxophone. Soloist is what I want. So make sure you type in the word soloist now. That's important. So I type in the word soloist and I do an update. This gives me all the soloist type tracks, right? Oh, I didn't get anything. Okay, so maybe I'm missing something in my saxophone. Let's see if I just do saxophone and see what I come up with, and see how they label it. Because sometimes they may label it a little bit different. Plus, it helps if you spell saxophone the right way, right? that always helps. Okay, I'm not getting an update here for sax, so let's try trumpet and see what I can come up with. Let's see what trumpet says. Okay, so I've got some trumpets here, right? So again, I've got trumpet soloist, right? So let's try something. I'm gonna try trumpet smooth jazz, right? So I've got this trumpet soloist, right? Again, so I'm gonna do again. I'm just to show you how to use this trumpet, and I'm gonna do soloist. And what it's going to do is it's only going to give me tracks that are trumpet soloists, and here they are down here, right? Got a little smooth jazz thing here. So let's see what we get here. Now that might work, right? I mean, again, it's a nice tone for the type of song this is. It's okay. It's okay, right? I think I wanted something softer. The trumpet has such a bright, it's like a heavier tone, right? So I wanted something a little bit softer. But what I'm trying to show you is I'm trying to show you how you take your track and you audition different types of instruments that you may be interested in and doing a solo, right? And again, it all depends on the context of the song, right? If I was in a rock song, I'd probably have some type of electric guitar, with distortion turned on or a resonator, right? If I do, this sounds like almost like a muted trumpet, didn't like that. The country didn't go with it, right? So I was like, you know what, I don't like that one too much, right? And again, so I'm thinking maybe a saxophone is probably best. So what I'm going to do here, I'm looking at different things. And again, I've tried different soloists, right? The key point here is that set your song up first, the type of song you want to do. Pick a track. I happen to pick this track here. Pick a track. Go to Real Tracks, because you want Real Tracks, right? Go to Real Tracks and choose Real Tracks. And I can choose it from recent, but I'll just choose Real Tracks from here. And select Real Tracks, right? And again, when you type in an instrument, like if I type in nothing, and this will kind of give you, it gives you an idea of how the filter is coded, right? So if I do update, see, it gives me everything here, right? So again, if I'm looking for this, so let's just say I'm looking for a saxophone, right? If I'm looking for a saxophone and I scroll down, let me see if I scroll down this sax and see, because it may be a naming convention. Sometimes you can do electric, you can do acoustic guitars, right? So if I scroll down the saxophone, wait a minute, wow, they're down there, aren't they? Let's see. There we go. Oh, they don't call it saxophone. They call it sax. That's why, right? So again, so I'm going to do sax, comma, soloist, and do an update here. And it shows me soprano, soloist, saxophone. So I can do a soprano, sax, and the different types of styles that you want to use it against, right? So again, if I pick a sax soloist, right, I'll just do smooth jazz, just for something to do. Hear what it sounds like. Wow, that's kind of piercing, right? Well, let's see what happens as it smooths out against the pattern, right? So again, I'm picking a sax, right? I think that's kind of nice. I think it kind of fits the overall mood of the song that I'm after. So again, so I'm going to go with, in this particular song, I decided to go with sax, right? So again, so what happens is that, I actually, to save time, right? So I used different solos, right? So what I did was I said, okay, I'm going to use saxophone. I'm going to use a saxophone. So I used the sax. So again, what I did was, and by the way, I made sure that when I did it against the pattern of the song. And what I mean by the pattern of the song is, when did I want the sax to come in? When did I want the sax to go away? When did I want the sax to come in? When I want, and so on and so forth, right? So again, so I did a sax. It's giving me a nice little pattern. Now, I wouldn't want that in the beginning of the song, but it sounds like a great pattern for a break. It really does. But I've got my breaks in here, right? So this part's only gonna play for 8 bars. Now it's gonna be gone. And I start singing, saw a photograph, memory of the past, days when I was such a fool. Don't pay attention to the other instruments, because again, when I do songs like this, right, I am not concerned with overall tone balance. I'm concerned with how it lays out. Again, this whole thing here is a sketch pad. I'm not going to use this when I go into my DAW, but it gives me an idea of how I want the breaks to come in, what instruments I want to come in, what instruments I want to drop out. So again, so I found a sax. Now this is also interesting about it is that when you pick a soloist track, right, notice I have the sax frozen here, right? And that's because as you regenerate in Band in a Box, it plays the track differently. So if I'm going to unfreeze the sax and I'm going to generate. And you'll see how it changes. It's still in key and everything, but it changes the pattern of how the instrument actually plays. So again, so when if I get something I like, I'll go back and I'll usually freeze it. And I'll show you right here. See, it played different than it played the first time. It's playing differently now, right? So that's how it played now. So if I generate it again, it may play it again totally different, right? So that's important to recognize. And that's why I like to do this, the solos in my DAW. We'll see how it plays this time. See, it's playing it differently again. Every time I regenerate it, it's going to play the pattern different. But if I happen to stumble up on a pattern I like right off the bat, right, then what I would do is I will go ahead and I will freeze this track. By me freezing this track, what it does is it does not regenerate. It doesn't change the pattern when you regenerate. It changes other things, but it doesn't change the pattern when you regenerate. So if you find a pattern you like, you may want to use a freeze bar. But that's if you're going to do the entire song in Band in a Box. I'm not going to do the entire song in Band in a Box. I'm going to change it up because I want to use different pieces of the solo and put them where I want them at. So again, so that's another trick you can use, right? So for the last thing is what I do. Before I go into my DAW, and I always do this, before I go into my DAW, one of the things that I do is I take all of the breaks out. So I have the solo playing throughout the entire song. Now remember the saxophone solo played for the first 8 bars, right? So I'll just go ahead and play it for the first 8 bars, right? But I'm getting ready to put this in my DAW now, okay? So, see, that's too busy for an intro, but it might work in another section of the song. It's still playing right now. It's going to play, this solo is going to play all the way through the entire song. No, you don't want it playing through the entire song, but the nice part about it is that if it does play through the entire song, then you can go back and you can pick out the pieces of when you want to hear it and when you don't. I mean, nobody will hear a sax solo the whole. Well, actually, you do, but I mean, if you do, right, it's called an instrumental. You know? So that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to add some accents and to add a different flavor to a song that we're already doing, right? So I've got my saxophone. I've got my instrument. I've selected the instrument I want to use as a soloist in my track. That's what I have done. So what I did was I found the instrument. Remember, we tried guitar, we tried pedal steel guitar, we tried trumpet, right? We tried sax. You know, now you can try others, right? But we tried those, right? I happen to like the sax the best for this particular track. Again, maybe you like something else, I don't know. But I happen to like the sax the best, right? So now I need to get this in my DAW, right? And I want to get it in my DAW and put it exactly where I want it at, right? Now I have the DAW integration tool and I use Sonar, right? But before I put it in my DAW, and this is something I strongly recommend for all of you when you move tracks over, notice my faders here are almost pre-mixed. When I'm going into my DAW, I don't want to do that. I'm going to take them all the way up to between 90 and close to 100. I'm going to take all of them up there. And the reason why is because when you put them in your DAW, this affects the waveforms that go into your DAW. And you want nice, clean waves because, let's be honest, it's easier to lower the volume of the wave file than it is to take it up. So what I do is I take the volumes up if I'm going to go into my DAW. First of all, number one is I take the volumes up. Number two is I make sure that I have no instruments resting anywhere. So if you look at my bar settings now, my bar settings are clean. In other words, what I want is I want every instrument playing throughout the entire song. I will make my changes when I go into my DAW. So again, so I take all of my accents off and I make sure all of my volumes are in the 100 range before I do it. Now when I go to my DAW integration tool, which is here, I do DAW integration, right? I have my sonar up, and now in this case, I'm only taking the sax over, right? That's because that's all I need. I've done the rest of the tracks. I've already dragged them over. And if you were before, you would have seen me drag them over. I don't want to take you through all of that. But I'll just take the sax and I'll just drag the sax over to this track 15 here. So now, again, I don't need my band in the box anymore, so I'm gonna close that down. So now my track is in, my saxophone solo is in sonar, and here it is right here. So this is my sax solo in sonar. Notice it's playing right off the bat. I think I need to cut a bar off because I've made some different alignments is what I did, and probably doesn't help none. So I'm gonna cut it and I'm gonna move it over. Hopefully it lines. Let me see if it lines up there. I think I need to cut it a little bit more. So maybe I do another. Maybe I just do a small edit. See if I can bring it over a little bit more. Because I needed to line up right, and I did. This is something that I didn't do beforehand, which I should have done. I should have done that, but I didn't. But I didn't do that, right? So I take and cut it a little bit more. Let's see if I can get that bad boy lined up over here. It should be pretty close. Pretty close. Let me see if I'm going to mute the original sax, and let me see if I do that. See what we get here. I need to move that over about a 16th beat, and let's see what we get here now this time. See, now notice again. So I've got it with the rest of my music, right? But notice it's playing a solo all the way through, right? Just not what I want. And that's too busy. There are certain pieces of this solo that I do want, right? Because of the fact that there are certain pieces of this solo that I do want, I can play around with that now, right? So I can take the actual pieces of the saxophone that I like. I can chop them, I can move them. Maybe I want to move this part here down into maybe bar 40 something. Maybe I want to silence all of this effort here. And by dragging the entire solo over, now I can play with the different elements because the solo, it's going to have some good parts in it, right? Not crazy about that part here. If I go down here and listen to this part. I like that part there. Maybe I can use that part there somewhere else, right? If I go down a little further, you know, maybe I could use that part, right? So again, so what I do is I take the entire solo, drag it over into my DAW, and take pieces of the instrument and put it where I want to put it at. So if I go back and take the saxophone solo, and I'm going to go ahead and mute this, right? Because I actually did a full edit for you. And if I take and I mute it, I'm not going to play the whole song, but I'm just going to play a portion of it. And I'll show you how it came out using this technique of actually editing and altering your solo instrument so that it fits the overall mood of the song. So this is the song, and this is with an altered saxophone, I put it like that. Important thing, when you put solos, if you're going to put solos inside of a song and you're doing that right, don't have the solo abruptly just cut. You don't want to do that, right? I started singing at, I think it was bar 9 I started singing at. Let me see. See, so I started singing at bar 9, but what I did was instead of having a solo just abruptly end, you know, and again, a solo, it just won't end like that, right? So what I did was I took and I adjusted the wave file so that it would actually fade as I was starting to sing. So the solo wouldn't overpower me. It wasn't over, but it was like fading out, right? So if you listen to it again, if you listen to the way I did it, is the solo was playing full here and it started fading slow. If you were doing the song for real, right? Not for real, you're doing the song for real anyway, you know, but if you were doing the song with a bunch of musicians, right? They wouldn't just, the guitar wouldn't just stop on that chord, right? Or the saxophone player wouldn't just, you know, it wouldn't happen like that. He would fade it out. And that's what I'm doing here. Through the wave file, I'm actually manipulating the wave file so that it actually fades as the vocals come in and overtake it. So there's like an overlap that's taking place at that point. And again, so I decided to do that, and then because I wanted a solo in the middle of the song, right? I had finished the second verse, right? I says, okay, I need a break here, and I'm going to put a solo in the middle of the song, right? So as I went through the song, and I went through the middle of the song, and again, so that's how I did it, right? And again, this entire track, every instrument, every piece of music that you hear was done in Band in a Box. You can do this in Band in a Box, right? You have some cuts, you have some edits, you do some chops, a few things like that. And guess what? You're off and running. Well, hello, Band in the Box users. This is Henry Clarke, Henry Clarke's channel. And of course, I devote a part of my channel to doing things in Band in the Box. And I did a testimonial 3 weeks ago. It's out on the web now, right? And I talked in that testimonial about the evolution of Band in the Box and how I've seen it change over the last few years with the integration of loops and things like that. I said that when it first came out, and actually somebody wrote in the forum said that they thought Band in the Box was kind of elevated music, right? Well, it's not. It's really not. There's a lot more that you can do within the product, but you got to take a little time. You got to go through some things, right? Again, so, and this hear that beat in the background, right? That beat in the background was actually made in Band in the Box using loops. Now it's using what they call acid loops. And acid loops, the nice thing about acid loops is that they will change with the tempo and with the actual range, the pitch of the song. So they will automatically make that progression for you. And that's really important if you're trying to do loops. But what I'm going to show you guys is I want to show you guys, oh, wait a minute, subscribe. That's right. I can always use more subscribers. Now that I got that out of the way. But I'm going to show you guys today how I took a song and I said I wanted to do a disco song, right? So I said, okay, I want to do a disco song. It's got to be an old soupy ballad, right? And I want to speed it up and I want to add a disco flavor, disco/house flavor to it because a lot of times stuff is house today, right? So I wanted to do that, and in this video I'm going to show you guys how I put this song together, right? Not the whole thing, of course. No, we don't want to take all the time in doing that. But I'm going to show you guys how I incorporated loops and Band in the Box and put the song together to give it that disco/house flavor. So again, I'm going to head on over to my Band in the Box and show you guys how I put together Walk On By, which is an old Dionne Warwick song, but now it's housey. So I want to show you guys how I put that together. So again, hold on a second and I will be right back. Okay, so what I did was, again, I wanted to do a disco song. I wanted to take an old song, old super ballad, right? I wanted to speed it up and I wanted to change it into a disco/house song. And the most important thing about a disco/house song, of course, is the beat. Gotta have that beat, right? But I needed to find a pattern in disco, right? So again, if you saw any of my videos before, I'm using a blank slate here, right? I've taken it, I've thrown the chords in for Walk On By, and I needed to find a disco beat for it. Now, I happened to pick Funky Schlager in this one, and I don't even know what Funky Schlager means, right? But I picked this actual pattern for it, and you can, I'll just play it for you really quick. You can get an idea of how it sounds. And I'm like, okay, it's, it sounds okay, but it's too slow, and the beat is boring to me. The drums are okay, but they're boring, right? But I looked at some of the other patterns, and if you've seen any of my videos about picking a style, you can see how if I type in disco, right, I typed in disco up here, right, and it gave me some other patterns of doing a disco song. I'm not going to go through all of them because I don't want the video to be too long, right? This one is a little bit longer, but I don't want it to be too long. But I picked Funky Schlager as opposed to some of the other disco beats or disco patterns that I have in my system, right? So I said, okay, so I'm going to take this Funky Schlager and I'm going to run with it, right? Again, it's 110 beats per minute, right? So the first thing I need to do is, again, I need to beef these drums up because these drums are whack. These drums, they're not whack. That's not a good, no, but they just don't have, they're okay. I like the hi-hat, but I don't like the overall pattern because, again, it's a club house pattern, right? The thing about a club house pattern is always got that 4 on the floor steady beat, that boom, 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 boom. So I needed to add a couple of loops in here, right? Because I'm going to go to my loop library, and Band in the Box, they've given you a ton of loops, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my loop library and find a couple of loops that will help boost this overall sound here, right? So again, and I actually had to get another piece of paper, right? I got so many loops here, right? So I found some. I don't want to go through all of them, right? Because again, I don't want to take all day. But if you notice, you've got acoustic drums, you've got dubstep, hip hop, house techno. House techno, exactly what I'm looking for. Because again, I want a house beat. I want the kind of house beat. I want this. I'm gonna say I already picked it, right? But I went through it. It was Complextro Boost. I have no idea what Complextro Boost means. But I thought it'd be good. So it's Techno Trance Complextro Boost, right? So where is Techno Trance Complextro Boost at? It's somewhere in here. Techno Trance Complextro Boost. I've got Techno Trance. What is it? Techno Trance. It's House Techno Trance. I'm sorry. House Techno Trance Complexo Boost, right? So I'm going through my loops here trying to find it. Again, I had picked it out before, so which was a little bit easier. And there's Techno Trance Complexo. So I use Techno Trance Complexo Boost One B minor, one B minor EA. Let's see what that sounds like, right? I'm gonna audition it for you. That wasn't the right one. Maybe this was the right one. That's the one I want. I want that. See, I want that heavy four on the floor beat. That's the one I want, right? So I'm gonna pick that, right, as my loop. So now I have the drums, and now I have. I've got to generate here. I've got to generate to get this loop generated, right? So now I've got that four on the floor house beat that I was looking for. So when you add that with the drum set that's already there, and I'm going to back off some of this other stuff, right? So let me take the guitar out. I just want you to hear these drums now. So that's my drums, right? So again, I've got that heavy four on the floor beat. I've got the nice hi-hat that's coming in from the pattern itself, right? So again, so I'm going, okay, I like that, right? What else would you might find in a song like this, right? Is also if I add another percussion element in it to make it just a little bit busier, right? I felt like that would help it out a whole lot. So I went back and I decided to try to find another loop that I would like, right? So I went and I looked for house, techno, trance, house, swirl. House, techno, trance, house, swirl, right? House, techno, trance, house, swirl is what I was looking for. Let me see if I can find it again. And like I said, I'll audition these, right? Okay, so it's swirl EV16, and let's see. So there's my percussion, right? So again, so now when I add percussion in, and you can tell it's gonna create a huge difference in the overall beat pattern. So now I've got a four on the floor beat. I've got the normal drums that came with the pattern, and now I've also got this percussion. Check it out now. See how it's already getting more energy. It's got more energy already. And that's what I was looking for. So again, if I add the other elements in, and I'm not worried about the volume level because I fixed it my DAW, but I just want to make sure I get that beat, that rock solid hard beat that gets people moving. That's exactly what I was looking for. So again, so what I've done is I've taken the drums, the standard drums in the pattern, right? And I've added two extra loops, and I've added a percussion loop, and I've added a four on the floor beat that I wanted to give you that house pattern. What is the other thing that I did here is also what I did was I just said, okay, you know what? I like that, but it's too slow. That's too slow. 110 beats per minute is too slow for the club, right? So I went in and I changed the beats per minute and I cranked it up to 118. So now when I crank it up to 118, again, these are all things that give it a brand new flavor. So now I've got it at 118 beats per minute. And that's where I am now. So now I'm at 118 beats per minute, right? So now that I've got the beat set the way I like it at, I've got the tempo set the way I like it at, right? Now I can get on with further enhancing the overall production of the song. So I'm going to open up another pattern here, right? There was one more thing I wanted to show you here was that I also wanted to make sure that I added a solo component because basically what happens is that when you're talking about club music, right? Again, the beat is more important than the actual lyrics. The lyrics can be a bit important, but if you ever notice how these club songs, right? Some of them last 20 minutes, right? It's because of the beat. It's because they have an infectious beat. It's not really about. I mean, it's kind of about the song, but at the same time, it's not as much about the song. So, I said if I break up and just have beats going with nothing else, right? Let me just add something else in there. So I decided to add some solo parts in there of a solo synthesizer. This was not a good song I felt for a saxophone or for a guitar because it's also electro, right? Well, if you got electro, right, then you want the synthesizer to be. You want the solo to be based on a synth and not anything else. So I found a synth pattern for a soloist in Band in the Box, right? And I think that starts around bar 53 or so. And it gives me that overall feel of what it would sound like with a synthesizer in it, right? Again, I've added some other things too. Of course, I always add stuff. If you saw my video about having a fuller sound, you will notice that it takes on a new element when you add more elements in. In this particular case, I want to add a synthesizer in and only bring it in certain sections of the song, and of course, take it out in certain sections, and so on and so forth, right? Because I felt like that was important. And so now when I bring the synthesizer, it's taking a while to generate this one here, right? I don't know why. Maybe it's because I got so much stuff going on in my system. But it should pop up in a second, be ready to go. Let's see if we can get this thing going here. got my synthesizer here now. There you go. That, to me, that's great. That's exactly what I wanted in here, right? So now I've got my basic song down. I've got exactly how I want it to go. Again, I do my mixing in my DAW. So, so I'm not really worried about the volume levels, right? Again, of course, like I said, when you saw my video about having a fuller song, right? I've added some organ. I've added a couple of extra synths in here, right? But again, my loop pattern is still consistent throughout. I wanted that 4-on-the-floor kick. I wanted that percussion to augment and help accent the standard drum pattern that was in this actual pattern generated. Only other thing I want to show you guys as far as Bad in the Box goes also is that I created some interesting part markers in here, right? So if you look at my bar settings, right, if you notice the red line here, right, if you look at my bar settings, right, and if you notice the same chord is here throughout for the first 8 bars. Well, the reason why I did that is because that wasn't important to me, because I was not going to have music in that component anyway, in that section anyway, right? I just wanted a basic drum beat to get people up, to get people moving during that section. So I just decided to augment and edit the bars accordingly, right? So when I do that now, and I don't know what's going on here, I'm a little bit slow here. So now when I do that, right, what I've done is I've muted the bass, I've muted the synthesizers. In other words, I've muted every instrument in this pattern except for the drums is what I did. So I muted everything else because I didn't want it to play. And then at bar 5, I only brought the bass in. So if you look at my bar settings for bar 5, you will see, remember, and once elements stay muted, they stay muted until you bring them back into play. So what I did was I muted, for the first 4 bars, I muted all of the instruments is what I did. And for the next set, I brought only the bass back in. So if you listen to it, you will notice that it starts out with just the drums, which is what I wanted. Give you time to get about the floor. Come on, girl, let's go dance, right? Then I brought the bass in. So now I got my bass kicking in, right? And then at bar 9, I brought everything in. Now everything is in. Now I didn't have the solo in my final cut. I took the solo out. I didn't bring the solo in until much later in the song, right? But again, I brought everything in up to that point. The other thing that I did that I thought was kind of interesting also is that if you get up in here at bar 15, watch bar 16. Now, if you notice at bar 16, right, what did I do at bar 16, right, is I've got that dent, right, and those are chops. So what I did was at bar 16, right, so what I did was in the chord settings window, and if you got my chord settings windows here, right, is what I did was beat 1 was normal, right, but on beat 2, I wanted that I pushed that chord up at 1/8 of a beat. So I pushed it up at 1/8, right, so that it would, and then at the same time that I pushed it up, right, I just pushed it there, and then on the 3rd beat, I gave it a shot. Everything but the drums. So everything is like, that's how you get that dun, dun, that's how you get that dun, dun sound, right? Is that you push and then you put a shot in, right, and it gives you that type of sound. So that's what I did there, right? So again, if you listen to it again, and I'm setting the song up is what I'm doing, right? That's it. Now, and I start singing. So that's exactly how I put it together, right? So I put the song together that way. Again, I added organ, I added another synthesizer, as usual, I added a solo synth, right? But the main thing is that I added 2 loops to enhance the overall production and give me that actual house sound. So how does it sound in my DAW, right? So again, I'm gonna close Band in the Box now. And I'm just going to give you a couple of minutes of how it sounded overall in my DAW. So when you listen to it in my DAW now, again, I mixed everything together. And notice I use a lot of what we call bussing. I bus a lot in my systems, right? And the reason why is because I want to be able to control. Right now, I'm looking at 20-some tracks. I think it is 28 tracks, right? But I had 3 sets of drums, right? So I created a bus just for the drums right here. If you notice, this is just for the drums, a bus just for the drums, a bus just for the music, a bus for the lead vocals, a bus for the background vocals, a bus for the shout, right? But that helps me control things as I'm controlling the mix going throughout, instead of me having to go and try to adjust 29 faders. I'm also a big fan of, I also do a lot of panning, where I'll pan left, pan right. I mean, the drums will be center right, but I might put the guitar a little bit over, might put the organ a little bit over. If you notice, I'm doing a little bit of panning here. Yeah, that's right. This can't be done in an hour. It can't be done in 2 minutes, right? So anybody thinks you can, well, more power to you. You know, this type of music, these type of songs, it take a little bit more time than that, right? And also, what you do is you discover things as you go along, and you find out that things might work a little bit better as you listen to different versions of it. But now, if I play it, and again, I've got my actual drums. I've got all the drums going into a single bus. So now I can control this fader here up and down. I can raise them up and down and put everything together. My bass just kicked in. I've got my bass kicking in, right? Now watch, the rest of my music will come in right up here, bar 9. Notice again, see, I've mixed it now, so it's not like it was in Band in the Box. It's not so overpowering, right? It's all together now, right? So from that point on, right, it's just a matter of me putting my vocals in, right? I do a lot of vocals, of course, right? So, you know, so my vocals are, I've got 4 tracks of lead vocals, right, just to kind of give it a better flavor, to give it a more spread of dimension, right, left and right. I do not pan center because people listen to music on cell phones, so I pan left and pan right. Not necessarily hard left, hard right, but a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right. Sometimes I might do a little harder, like a quarter to the left, quarter to the right, just to fill the sound out, especially, like I said, people listen to music on cell phones. So now if you listen to my lead vocals.
See you walking down the street, and I start to cry. Each time we meet, walk on by.
So that's the lead vocals, right? Again, I don't want to take a lot of time. That's why I'm kind of rushing through this, right? Also, I thought that the little shout that I had there's a section in the song where I did a shout. I thought that was kind of interesting because when I got to the shout portion, which was fun, right? I wanted to set up a percussion break where the music stopped, the percussion came in, right? And I did a shout, but I wanted the shout to carry over a little bit into the percussion break, right? So I put an echo on the shout. And if you listen to the shout in isolation, you'll hear when I go, whatever, you know. And that echo is carrying over, right? And it may sound a little weird by itself, right? But when you listen to it over the overall context of the music, and notice what is there? Just my 4 on the floor. I'm just using my 4 on the floor beat at that point. Then I bring my percussion back in. My percussion's in. I brought my bass in right here. Now the rest of the music. And notice there's a little bit of that solo synthesizer in the background. So again, so that's exactly how I put this all together, right? But the most important thing is that when I created the Band in the Box pattern, it was at 110 beats per minute. It had a standard disco drum set. I went and I added extra loops in. I added a percussion loop from the Band in the Box loop library. I added a 4 on the floor kick drum because I wanted that house club kick bass drum going on throughout the song, and that was a loop that I found in the loop library. So I added those elements, and they made a huge difference in the overall production of this song. So again, so I hope that this helps you as far as your production goes. I hope this helps you in putting things together. And this song will actually be out on, I think it drops on August the 7th, something like that. But again, just listen to the tail end of it, right? You can kind of get an overall feel of how it was put together. And if you notice again, look how many harmony lines I have here. So again, so that's why when I say, you know, that doing this in a short period of time, probably not very feasible, right? I'm doing 4-part harmony. I have 8 tracks. I'm doing 4-part harmony. Then I took and copied those 4-part harmonies. I pan one side to the left. I pan one side to the right. Again, just to fill it out. But those things take a bit of time. But if you spend a little time, your production will come out pretty good. And remember now, this is not $1 million studio. This is being done on a home PC, right? I'm using Sonar. I'm using Band in the Box to put my music together, and I'm doing mixing and adding, you know, just different effects to give me an overall quality sound. So I hope this helps in your production efforts. I hope this helps, and I hope the video wasn't too long. I tried to make it as short as I could make it, and I will see you next time. So again, thanks for watching. Bye. Well, hello there, and welcome to Henry Clarke's Band in the Box channel. Actually, not the Band in the Box channel, it's actually Henry's channel. But on this channel, I try to show you guys some tips about how to use Band in the Box from a production perspective. Now, I know I've been gone a while. I've been dipping my toes in the club music, so I've been kind of creating some club music. And in all fairness, right, Band in the Box is not the most optimal solution for that type of music because they use more sounds and things like that. Doesn't make it a bad product, but I've just, like I said, I've been focusing more on club music recently. However, back in 1976, there was a song called Harvest for the World, and it was by the Isley Brothers, right? And what was neat about that song is that it had a great chord push in it. So in this particular episode, what I want to do is I want to show you guys how you can achieve that chord push using the Band in the Box product. So again, this is about pushing chords. That's why you see the title, I'm pushing a chord, right? And I'm only pushing the chords, pushing the chords up in eighth, but it can really give you a great feel when you do that because it can kind of change the overall feel of the song. So hang with me, and I'm heading over to my console, and I will show you guys how Henry does chord pushing in the Band in the Box product, okay? Hold on a second. I wanted to do this song in Band in the Box. So I took Band in the Box, and you know me, I get a chord, I did the chord sheet, right? So I had a chord sheet of it, right? So I went in and I put the chords in Band in the Box. Straight chords, straight Band in the Box, no changes, no nothing. And this is what it sounded like when I first put it into Band in the Box. Let me play it for you really quick. Okay, see, everything's on the beat instead of the tone, right? See that? It's like, yeah, you know, don't. That's not what I wanted. Don't. I wanted that. Everything is straight. Especially when the vocal come in. So again, you know, I wanted that feel of the Isley Brothers, and Band in the Box in its native form did not give that to me. The song was in 4/4. I just estimated it at 120 BPMs. I don't know. It could be right, could be wrong. But anyway, I just decided to use 120. And that's what my Band in the Box gave me. So again, I wanted that particular feel of the pushes, right? So how did I achieve that? Well, you achieve that through the chord settings window. And I copied some in to save time, right? So again, so what I did, remember, it sounds like this. Everything is straight on the beat. Da 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 da. But that's not the way the song went. That's not what I wanted. So again, so in my chord settings window, I'm going to right click. This was the first push, was this B minor 7th. So I'm going to take it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to chord settings, and this is the window here, and I'm going to push that chord up an eighth, and I'm going to click OK. It's put the little caret over top of it, right? If it was a 16th, it would have put 2 carets, right? And the chord turns green. For right now, it's just up an eighth, right? So I took that up an eighth. I took the G major 9th up an eighth. Chord settings, push an eighth, OK. I took the C7th, right click, chord settings, up an eighth. And I took this G here, chord settings, right click, chord settings, up an eighth. There. Did the same here, chord settings, because this is kind of repetitive, right? Chord settings, and I could have cut and pasted these, but just want to show you how I'm doing it, right? The E9, chord settings, right click, chord settings, up an eighth, and that's all I did on. And then when I got to the verse, I did it here on the B minor 7th, chord settings, up an eighth, and I did it on the 4th bar, the E9, chord settings, up an eighth, and again the B minor 7th, right click, chord settings, up an eighth, and the E minor 7th, chord settings, up an eighth. So I did that, and this is what I got when I did that. Hear that? You hear it pushing? That didn't push there, right? It's not supposed to. The push is here. It's pushing. but the drums are pushing also. That's not what I want. I want the drums to be steady. But still, the chords are pushing. And so that's exactly what I wanted, right? But I didn't like the drums, of course, because I don't want the drums to push. I want the drums to be steady. But again, if I go back and I look at my chord settings window, it doesn't give me the option of what instruments to choose to eliminate from the chord push. That's okay though, because I'm going to have to work around that, which is okay. I got to work around it. That's fine, you know. So what did I do? So I created a full template, and I'm just going to change templates to save time. A full template here, and I don't want to save those changes, right? And this is a full template, and you know me, I added extra instruments, right? So notice all of my pushes are throughout here. All of my pushes are here. You notice wherever it's green and it has a caret over it, it's a push, right? I also added some instruments, right? I added an organ, I added some more guitars, I added some more pianos, just to give me a better sound, right? But notice I have the drums muted because I wanted to make sure that I get the feel of what I was looking for the song. Hear that push? Hear that push? That's what I wanted, right? So again, so I wanted that push, but I want it with straight drums. So that's why I have the drums muted, because if I did not have the drums muted, you would hear the drums pushing. Unfortunately. Hear that drums pushing? That's not what I want. So again, so I have the drums muted. So now, this is where it's important that you're doing some of this work in a DAW. I recommend, if you're trying to do anything really cool, musically speaking, right, within Band in a Box, I really think you should use a DAW. I think that, you know, I know they have audio edit and all this kind of stuff, you know, and you can mute, you can change things. But even then, remember, you can change things within the console, but in order to change utility tracks, you have to use the audio edit. Well, that's, for me, that is like way too much trouble. It really is. Plus, I don't know what I want to do. I haven't made my mind up yet exactly how I want the arrangement to go. So that's why I am such a DAW fan when it comes to using this product. Every song I almost have ever done in Band in a Box, I did it in a DAW. I wrote the song in Band in a Box and I exported it over into a DAW, right? So we're going to do the same thing here, right? So I'm going to take all of my tracks except for my drums, and I'm going to export those over into my DAW. And the way I do that is I'm going to go to Audio. I'm going to go to Export Song as Audio File. I'm going to make sure I have one file per track, and I'm going to render. But before I do that, I'm going to create a catalog, right? So I created a catalog called Render 2. I'd already done it before. So I'm just going to take these out of here, because we're going to do them over again. So now everything I render is going to go into this folder called Render, right? So when I hit Save, it's going to go through and it's going to start rendering all of my tracks. In other words, it's going to render all of my tracks except for what's muted. It does not render what is muted. That's really, really important because I don't want those drums at all. I just want all of the guitars and all of the piano and the organ and everything else that I did when I put this track together. Those are the things that I wanted. So again, it's doing it now. I'm just gonna let it run, right? I just, because it should only take a couple of minutes. The song's not that long. I only got like 40 some bars. So this is not a long process here. If I was doing 80, 100 bars, something like that, I probably would have stopped the video and just let it go. But for right now, I think you guys can handle, you know, a couple of minutes of that and a couple of minutes of my yakking. You know? But anyway, that's what it's doing. It's rendering all of the tracks except for the drum track, and I'm going to use those tracks in my DAW. And if you notice in this window here, Move it over. Those are my tracks. I've got guitar 1, 2, bass, 5, organ, piano 1, piano 2. I have those tracks, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and get my original template. Remember the one I made first that I didn't have any changes to, that had the straight chords in it? I'm going to go and get that one. So I'm going to go here, and that was template number 2. And that's the one that had nothing in it, right? Except for, everything was straight and everything was boring, right? But now what I'm going to do with this one here is I am going to mute everything except for the drum track, because that's all I want is the drum track. So I'm going to mute every single thing in here except for that drum track. I don't want anything else in here. I don't have to go through all these utility just so there's nothing there. But anyway, so that's what I'm going to do. So I only want the drum track. So now I'm going to go back again to audio. I'm going to export as an audio file. I'm going to render. And because I'm going to the same folder, I'm going to put the drum track in this folder. So when I hit save, it says one of the files already exists. I don't care about that file. I can overwrite that file. It doesn't matter. But it's the drum track that I want more than anything. So I'm rendering now. It's going to render the drum track, which is what it's doing. And this is really good. And again, remember when you render and you go to your DAW, remember that your DAW, set the BPMs in your DAW to exactly what the BPMs were in your Band in a Box track. And the reason why you want that is because that way everything will line up from a timing perspective. So just keep that in mind. Don't try to have your render track set at 120 BPMs and your DAW set at 110. It'll play, but the timing is going to be off. So now I have all of my tracks and my drums, but now I have my straight drums in here, and that's my straight drums right here. That's what I have in here, right? So I'm going to close this now because I've got my waveforms. I can close this window, and I can close Band in a Box. I'm going to close Band in a Box altogether, and I'm going to open up my BandLab. Now, I was a Sonar fan for the longest time, but since BandLab kept pushing and pushing and pushing, right, I have gone to BandLab. I was so used to Sonar, which is cakewalk. BandLab is cakewalk, so it was an easy transition. I know people use Pro Tools, people use some of the other DAWs, right? I will never use Real Band. I'm just not a Real Band fan. But another reason why is because one thing I like the fact that if I want to learn something nice or decent or different about BandLab, if I was to go to YouTube and type in a tutorial about BandLab, right, I'd find 1,000 things. Whereas when I go and I do Real Band, I find 2 things. And I like the fact that so many people are involved in those other DAWs that I can actually learn some nice tips and tricks that I couldn't learn elsewhere, right? And plus, I'm such an old school guy, as far as DAWs go. And also, remember, a DAW allows me to cut and paste accordingly, right? So now, these are my tracks over here. All the tracks that I have actually dragged. I won't waste time showing you how to drag them, but I've dragged them over into my DAW. So now this is what it sounds like. Sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? And I haven't dressed it up or anything. Drop some instruments out. Do chord pushes within Band in a Box by highlighting the chord, going to chord settings, pushing the chord either an 1/8 or a 1/16. I didn't think I saw any other options, right? But you can do that, and it can give your music a totally different feel, a totally different flavor. So again, I hope this helps. I got to dip my toe back into the club scene. Like I said, I'm doing these club tracks right now, but I will be back more into Band in a Box very shortly. But I hope this helped you guys out in putting your songs together, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye.